From the Sunshine State, this is Tampa Bay's Tan Talk.
My friends, we live in interesting times. Many of us are unsure of this world and set back emotionally from an unidentifiable inner turbulence, felt holy, but the root of which remains unknown. We are staggered by the suffering we see. Mistakes are being made at an alarming rate. We oftentimes are confused, angered, or downright ashamed of worldly circumstances. We question our leadership. We question the moral philosophies we have developed throughout the course of our existence. And we question the parameters of society within which we are told to find our purpose. This may lead to us drawing within and/or becoming a loner. But the goodness of this reality is that we, the collective, are beginning to learn more and more from our mistakes. Each day that passes, our consciousness is elevated, all of us, even if only to the smallest degree. And within each seemingly painful thought lies the seed of a powerfully healing potential. We are beginning to sense this reality more and more, and I believe this trend will someday soon, perhaps within the lifespan of the listeners, bring deliverance of our salvation. I am convinced that the driving force behind evolution is the irrepressible urge to procreate, and its consequential desire that the lives of our children be better than our own. Almost any mother and father will certainly tell you the same. Though I lack an obvious perspective that would stretch back further than the day I was born, I sense that today's children are born with a greater understanding of how life should be, greater than anything with which their forefathers were blessed. I sense that the children have been sent to earth during these awesome days to help bring forth a new and better way of life for all people of the earth. These children have many names across many cultures. We refer to them here as indigos. And should we adventurously dare to peer over the veil and seek a timeless truth, we may find that these little old souls are here to hold on to a higher purpose and not let go. Perhaps that is why they are so stubborn. So let us learn of their purpose and dare to allow them to let their light shine. This is New Energy Radio. I am Michael Benjamin. Once again, my friends, we are engaged.
Give me your word, give me your sign. Show me where to look, tell me what will I find? What will I find? Lay me on the ground and fly me in the sky. Show me where to look, tell me what will I find? What will I find? Yeah.
All right, the 90s classic from Collective Soul, Shine. So tonight we're going to talk about indigo children, and this may be a term that's new to you. I'm guessing that a lot of people have heard of it, but we're going to explore it a little bit deeper tonight. And I'm super excited about the guest I have, who's going to help. He's going to help guide me and the rest of you along in this process. And her name is Suzanne Deshaies. Suzanne is a quantum alchemist. She works with DNA and quantum frequencies. She helps her clients engage in quantum awakening, which activates the Akashic record memory in order to help them speed up the transformational process of consciousness. Her work is recorded and archived at her website, quantumawakening.net, where you can also find her contact information and services offered. Suzanne has recently worked with me, and let me tell you, she's good. She's got a very refined understanding of this indigo consciousness, and she's here to speak with us about it today. Suzanne, you there?
I am.
Hey,
Michael.
How are you?
Good. Thank you for that introduction.
Absolutely. Did I get everything right?
You did.
I know when we talk about these things, quantum alchemist, that's quite the description right there. And then we're saying DNA and quantum frequencies and the transformational process, the Akashic records, and I know a bunch of other topics that you're familiar with because I've listened to a lot of your material, like galactic alignment and ancient civilizations and prophecies and things like that. I've listened to your stuff, and it's been real helpful to me, and I'm glad that I found you, and I'm very thankful to have you on the show. So thanks so much for joining us.
You are so welcome.
Tell me, so before we get into the indigo consciousness and the indigo children, which I think is important for two reasons. This indigo children, first for parents out there who might be having trouble with their kids, I think we're going to be able to shed a little bit of light on that, and also for people who might be a little bit older and also kind of resonate with some of these attributes. But before we get in there, can you explain to us what a quantum alchemist is?
Yeah, it actually comes from the tenet of quantum physics. And so what we know in quantum physics is energy can't be destroyed. You can't take a water molecule and, eliminate it. What happens is it transforms into something else. And that's what alchemy is. And most people know that term from turning lead into gold, the alchemy of turning lead into gold. So when I work with energy, that's what's happening. It's transforming it into something else, into another form, into a more advanced or expanded expression or consciousness.
That's awesome. That's really cool. That's how long did it take you to get where you are? I mean, you've been studying this kind of material for a long time. I've spoken with you before. I know you've overcome your own slew of challenges and tribulations. How long has it been since you kind of discovered that this was the path you were going to take, and how long have you been on this path?
Oh, gosh. I want to say all my life. I mean, what sort of forced me on my journey, the catalyst for me was I came in with very severe depression and panic disorder, and this is before they even knew what it was. And I went in for all these kind of, brain scans and everything else. And at the time, I didn't consider myself a spiritual person or even on any kind of spiritual path. But when all the traditional, medicines and therapies, when all that failed me, I was just bound and determined to crack the code myself. And it's almost by accident that I stumbled upon understanding quantum physics, and all these master teachers just sort of showed up for me very early and allowed me to cultivate my skills. So as far as, that's where sort of pulling all these frequencies through my body started, is in my own healing journey. And then eventually I was able to do that for others and assist them, and it's just kind of grown and expanded from there.
Was it real difficult for you at first?
It wasn't. I actually came in with all of my senses activated, all the clairs, I call them, clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentience. But what also happened is I incarnated into a very linear family. My father was a scientist. My mother was a nurse. So there really wasn't a lot of acceptance for a child who could know things before they happened and could see energy fields and so forth. So that really wasn't working for me. And at a very early age, I shut it down. And in the process of doing that, it caused this really severe depression where it was just everything was an effort. And then that later, the depression saps up your dopamine and your serotonin, and that's what starts the panic disorder. So it's kind of like this vicious cycle. So when I began my healing journey, it was very easy. It was like, reopening all these senses that I had come in with initially. So that part was really easy for me.
Well, I'm certainly glad that you did, because recently you've given me some guidance, and it's already proven to be helpful, and I think it's going to prove to be a lot more helpful. So I'm certainly thankful that you found your way, and I'm grateful for that. And once again, I'm grateful for you being on the show. But let's get into this. Indigo consciousness. That's how you refer to it. I had heard before many times about indigo children or just indigos, but you call it an indigo consciousness. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, the term indigo was actually coined by a woman named Nancy Ann Tapp in the 80s, and she was someone who claimed to be able to perceive human energy through color, and so that was the name that kind of stuck. My sense is that's going to change, and there's all these other terminologies that are thrown around out there, star seeds and highly sensitive people and all these kind of labels. So I try to stay away from it, but truly what it is the consciousness. It has very little to do with like the new age and that kind of thing. It's actually, this phenomenon is actually something that takes place at the precipice of great human evolution. So if you look back in time, let's say to the time of the Dark Ages, right after that, we had the Renaissance. And what that came from was the seed consciousness, these new thinkers, Copernicus, Leonardo da Vinci, who introduced new ideas that had never before been heard of. And it kind of launched this whole Renaissance time, this time of enlightenment as we look back. Well, in more recent times, we can look at the early 1900s and see that same pattern happening, where humanity is again at a time of, a quantum leap in evolution. And if you look back, this is scientifically proven where, there are certain times, and they happen to line up with the galactic alignments, and, in this case, it's, 2012. But it's like, all of a sudden humanity is kind of, clipping along, and they'll make this unprecedented leap that scientists can't really explain, and that's what's been known as the quantum leap. So we're right there again, and if we look back to the early 1900s, we had, of course, Albert Einstein, and lesser-known Nikola Tesla, who totally turned science on their head, introduced quantum physics, and, made these really huge advancements. So you see it as kind of individual examples at first. And then, of course, we had World War I and World War II. And then all of a sudden in the 50s, we had the baby boomers. And what we saw in the 60s were basically the youth at that time, which were the baby boomers, the 60s and 70s, making these choices, having behavior that was totally unexpected. Here were these, basically children of war heroes, right? World War II is considered a huge, victory for the United States, woke up the sleeping giant and all that. And then the children of these war heroes not only, didn't want to go to war, Vietnam War, when that came up, but they opposed it, very loudly,
very actively.
Verbally.
Yeah.
Not all, but, enough to do something unexpected. And then you see the civil rights movement where even though there was a law enacted where schools had to be desegregated, it was the youth at that time that really made that work, that said, you know what, I'm going to make a choice other than what my parents did. I'm going to give this person of a different race a chance. I want to get to know them. So it's kind of like that, this new thought, this new idea. and certainly Martin Luther King, the whole concept that we could free ourselves without fighting, without the conflict, by just stepping into our power. So he's a really good example of this indigo consciousness as well, and that had never been done before. So, and then as we continue on, of course, into the 80s, that's where you really saw this influx of children who all of a sudden weren't able to sort of, the traditional schooling. They had a lot of difficulties with that. And initially, the other interesting thing about this 80s group is this also coincided with the AIDS virus. And so many mothers at that time had, unknowingly contracted the AIDS virus. And you would think, science, said that, okay, if you've contracted it, then your baby will.
The baby
too.
should have it, right.
Right. And so I know you were really young back then, but for some of us, or you weren't even born, but, some of us do remember, and that was a really big thing, because what are we going to do with all these children that are born with this AIDS virus? We're going to have separate schools and, all of that. Well, lo and behold, they developed immune systems outside of the mother, which again was unprecedented, and tested negative for the virus. So they were
and this was a big deal? Was this like on the news and people were talking about this? Because I had never heard of it until I heard you talk about it.
Oh yeah, it was a huge epidemic. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know what caused AIDS.
No, I'm talking about the babies not catching on.
Oh, the babies. Oh yeah, and they were called miracle babies. That was the first term that they got. And then as they became school age and had difficulty in traditional schooling, because they're very conceptual thinkers. They're not linear thinkers. So, and then, of course, that coincided with the ADD, attention deficit disorder, attention hyperactivity disorder. That whole phenomenon was born as well.
Yeah, so, yeah, and let me kind of give you my understanding of what it is, and tell me if I'm on the right track here. So, without going back too far, let me just take it back to the 1980s. So we have this influx of kids, of newborns, who are born with a higher level of consciousness, and scientifically speaking, we can relate that to. From what I've seen, is a higher activation of DNA codons within the DNA structure. So these kids are being, so I guess typically on average humans have 22 of 64 possible codons activated within the most basic unit of a strand of DNA, and starting most recently and up until now, or starting in the 80s, a lot of kids were being born, and now pretty much I've heard that most kids born nowadays have an additional 6 codons on average activated at birth, which gives them these extra abilities, this added sense of intuition and telepathy, an additional sort of intelligence, if you will, or a higher level of awareness. And as they grow up, maybe they don't fit into the system too well, and a result of that is they can be quite unruly. Am I on the right track here?
Yeah, just backing up a little bit to the DNA. Basically, there is a part of our DNA that can be measured in a scientific way. You can get a blood test, you can get a saliva test, and send it to a lab, and they can analyze your genetics and your sort of graph it in a very linear way. There's another part to our DNA that is quantum. Science can see it, but they don't know how to measure it yet. They don't have the tools to measure it. And it is this quantum part of our DNA that holds our memory, our Akashic records. So what happens to these individuals who come in at the precipice of these great quantum leaps in human evolution is they have more access to more memory. So when we think of our 5 physical senses, we also, our 6th sense is intuition, and then we also have the 7th sense of telepathy. And everybody listening right now has had an experience of that, has had an experience of knowing something before it's going to happen, thinking of somebody before they call them, right? Turning on the radio and, oh, I was just thinking of that song.
Mm-hmm.
And telepathy, same way. Well, this group of individuals has more memory of, so it's a natural thing to them. It's not, it's not a big deal. They just kind of come in that way, just like a child who comes in who with musical abilities, who can, play Mozart at the age of 5, or who can sing. It's really the same thing. And I think a lot of times what happens is too much emphasis is placed on, these psychic kids, and, because the last thing they need is more labels and to feel more separated. But one of the the biggest attributes they have, which is going to lead us into this next sort of phase of human evolution, is the attribute of cooperation. And right now, every paradigm on our planet is set up in competition. And that comes from the Darwinian theory, that we have to compete. We've got to, only the strong will survive, which has scientifically been proven flawed, by the way, but it's still taught in schools. And so this new consciousness comes in with the attributes of cooperation, with the attributes of, not feeling like they have to compete. And when you meet these kids, it's so cool. When I say gather round, they immediately know to get into a circle. They just instinctively do it because they see each other as being equal. And, a lot of times when they're having problems in school, getting back to what you were saying about being unruly, and they feel misunderstood, this is when they can act out. But truly, they're like little masters. They're like little shamans running around. And one of the other things that is a really big deal to them is honor. If you don't honor them, they're not going to honor you. And what they pick up on is all the dishonor, all this competition, all this fighting, the dishonor of the planet. And so, in this way, they can act out as well.
And so maybe they're picking up on the remnants of, a few generations ago when the philosophy was children should be seen and not heard. And although that's changed and we've evolved to the point where that's not the case anymore, we're probably still that way a little bit. And maybe are they picking up on that? Because a lot of these kids, right, they're struggling in the traditional sense of behaving properly.
Well, that stems from, though, not being understood, and because they have the memory of how advanced civilizations are supposed to behave, which is in cooperation, which is understanding that we're stronger as a whole, and that's why they sit in a circle, than we are individually, and that sense of honor that has been lost. So when they go to schools that, label people and separate the kids, and really it's a lot of left brain activity, memorizing things. It's very frustrating. It's backwards to them. It's completely backwards. So this is where they can kind of act out and say, what's wrong, because they're so advanced in their thinking. And, especially as a child, it's very difficult to understand why nobody cooperates and why they're forced to memorize things instead of just being asked, what is your truth about this, or what is it you need to understand about this piece of history per se.
And is it? Do you think that do you think there's a lot of people out there who are struggling with unruly kids because they lack an understanding of this?
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of them come to me as clients, and with a very few, easy, really easy peasy kind of, dealing with the behavior, they can change the behavior very quickly.
And so what are some of these behavioral issues that these younger indigo children will have?
One of the things about living in, cooperation and not survival of the fittest is, there's not a hierarchy. And, we see like corporation, everything in our world is based on this pyramid where you've got, the people on the top who make a lot, and then kind of the trickle down thing. So in households, when you have these kind of hierarchical rules, like they don't understand that. They don't understand. They don't understand just being ordered to do something. You have to explain the rationale behind it. So, for instance, if you say, well, you can't play in the living room, and if you play in the living room, you're going to get punished. Instead of saying that, for a 6-year-old, you don't yet have the skill set to play in the living room without the possibility of breaking something. So what's appropriate for a 6-year-old is to play in the room or play in the playroom, wherever. And we'll work on the skill set. We'll work on getting you there so you can be in the living room and play. So if it's explained like that, giving them the information, it's better received than just kind of these orders that you have to do this because.
So these children, they don't acquiesce. They fight back. When you say like the honor is real important to them, if they feel like their honor is being violated, they're not just going to acquiesce because somebody's bigger and older than them. They're going to fight back, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So what does that mean when they grow up? How does someone like that grow up within the parameters of the system as it is?
Yeah, that's an interesting journey. In my work, and of course being of Indigo consciousness myself, what I found is that there's 4 specific phases that Indigos go through. So if you take the 80s, where, you have all this programming from school and all the cultural programming and a lot of time, a lot of religious programming too, they go through what I call the phase, the phase 1 Indigo, just kind of wandering out through life and not fitting in and not really sure why, feeling different, but not understanding it. And something happens, though. It could be as simple as reading a book. It could be a movie. I know, like The Matrix was a really big one for people, where it triggers memory. So they're kind of walking along, feeling lost, feeling isolated, being loners, and then all of a sudden, they'll have an experience. They'll meet somebody. They'll see a movie. Something will trigger the memory, and this is where we get into the DNA. That a piece of that Akash, and it's just kind of like remembering something you forgot. Feels exactly like that, and it launches them on this search, this journey. And the first thing they find out is the world isn't as it appears to be, and 2, that we are way more powerful than what we've been told. And so sometimes what can happen is if you go out there searching to figure out really what's going on in the world without first going inward and finding out what your own truth is, a lot of times you can get lost in all these conspiracy theories. And,
I know all about that one.
Yeah.
I know all about that.
Yeah, a lot of rabbit holes.
Oh, yeah, that rabbit, I have no idea how deep that hole goes, and believe me, I've been digging.
Well, that's just it. I mean, all you're going to find is rabbits, because the truth is, humanity's creation story isn't out there. And no matter whose version of it you read or study, there's holes in it. There's not one complete story out there. Not yet. But that story is already encoded in us. So if you begin the journey within to discover it within yourself instead of outside of yourself, you're going to have much more success.
Ooh, I want to ask you how to do that. Before I do that, though, let me just say to anyone who's out there, if you have questions about this, and especially, maybe if you're having trouble with a young kid, and you don't know, you're at your wit's end, you've taken them to a behavioral therapist or a child psychologist, let me just let you know that you have someone right now who can give you some very good guidance that will probably bring resolution to your issues. So call in. The numbers are 727-441-3000. And I'm not even going to give the toll-free number because that's just confusing and no one needs it. 727-441-3000, or send an email to newenergyradioshow@gmail.com. And we'll take your question, and Suzanne will take your question. So go ahead and call in. All right. What were we saying just right now?
We were talking about the Indigo phases, the 4 phases.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
and you
supposed
said,
to do it,
yeah,
and
that's
then
right.
going
Going
down rabbit
inward.
hole.
Yeah, and then you were talking about going inward. You have to go inward to find these solutions. How does one go about searching inward for these answers that persist in some sort of unyielding way? They kind of tug at your soul, like you have to know something, and you look and you look and you look and outwards, and you just can't find it. And so you're saying you got to go inwards, but what does that mean?
Yeah, and sometimes going outwards and hitting those brick walls, that's the catalyst for going inward. And that can be done as simply as just meditating, just quieting your mind. Because when you really have found the truth, it's very peaceful. So if you're in a place of fear, if you have information you found out there that's making you fearful, by the way, that's the reason why it's out there, is to kind of, impede this whole process. But if you have information that's not setting well with you, you've not found your truth yet. When you find your truth, it doesn't matter what's going on in the world. It doesn't matter what other people are saying, what other people are doing. You're at peace. You know. And then in this way, as you radiate it, we have, that 100th monkey effect. And that's the shift of consciousness that's been going on in this planet. We're right kind of in the middle of this transitional phase. But that's then something that you can share and assist others in finding their truth once you find yours.
And the
So
100th monkey,
meditation is-
I just want to explain that to everyone. The 100th monkey was an experiment. It was first done in Japan, and they had all these some species of monkey, and they were at different geographical locations on different islands, and they would drop these sweet potatoes for them in the sand, and they loved the sweet potatoes, but they didn't like how they were getting sandy. Well, some of the younger monkeys, they learned how to wash them off in the water, and it took a long time. They would try and teach their parents how to do it, but it didn't really take on, for several years. And then eventually more and more started doing it. And it all of a sudden got to a critical mass was hit of the monkeys who were doing it. And then all of a sudden, all these monkeys on all different islands, all of a sudden are now washing their sweet potatoes off in the sand so they can have a better meal, a better snack. So the scientists who discovered this phenomenon then decided to do it on people, and they had people in Australia and people in England, and they did basically the same thing without going into too many details. They found out that people are linked in some sort of phenomenal way in their consciousness, whereby we can share information through some means that's unknown within the current methods of science, that we are all connected, and it's science can't explain it, and we know that there's something there, and even science knows that there's something there, even though there's not a scientific explanation for it yet. But so is that what is? Go ahead.
Actually, there is. In quantum physics, we know this as entrainment. You're in training. So an example of that would be like if two people, we know this in music, if two people have a guitar and they're standing at opposite ends of the room, and one person strums the note B and the other one strums the note G, and they take their hands away, that B is going to entrain to the G. So he's going to entrain to the highest frequency. Or like two people jumping up and down in a trampoline. Initially they're going to bob up and down at different rates, but very quickly they start jumping up and down at the same time. So that's what's happening, is the brain waves are in training. And we learn from each other. It's really cool. And I'm so glad you explained that example, because when you're talking about the monkeys and they're trying to train the parents, that's how this indigo consciousness is. It's more difficult to train the old energy, but they will entrain the new energy, and that's exactly what's happening on this planet. And that's why it is so important to go within to find your own truth, because that's the quickest way to sort of spread this or share this.
Okay. Well, we got a bunch of shy parents out there right now, so let me talk about, and remember, still you call in 727-441-3000, and call in if you got any questions about this indigo consciousness, or if you have a child that's going through some issues right now, because there may be a solution on the other end of the line. But when you say that when we were just talking about how maybe the kids are going to teach the parents, teach the teacher kind of thing. Does that have anything to do with these ancient prophecies and everything that's supposedly unfolding right now, that's all taking effect, that's all going to be coming into effect in the very near future?
Oh, most definitely. This is the seed consciousness. So before humanity can take this quantum leap, it needs the new ideas, the fresh ideas. And Einstein had this great saying that you can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that created it. So as we look out on our world and we see all the problems, we see the war, we see all this, all these paradigms that were built on survival of the fittest that aren't working, that aren't serving the whole, what's going to shift that are new ideas. So you've got this new consciousness that thinks very, very conceptually. They're not like the Internet. That's a very conceptual idea. What we're doing right now, we're in different physical locations, but we're communicating. We're together in this moment. Indigos get that. That's why they understand this technology and the Facebook and the Twitter and all that.
Oh, my little niece is 3 years old. Yeah, and she's on an iPhone and an iPad, and she's ridiculously good with it. Yeah,
and so this is the new thinking that's going to bring forward the new ideas, because as all these paradigms fall, and this is a trend we're moving into, is all the focus has been on the old, on sort of all this pushing against the old, being angry against the old, all the protesting. That's all old energy. Those are all old ways of dealing with what doesn't work. What's really going to shift things are the new ideas, the new concepts. And so this is where all the energy is going to be focused on not fighting what we don't want, but creating what we do want. And in order to do that, it has to come from a new consciousness. It can't be the same people with the old consciousness. They won't be able to come up with the new solutions that are going to bring us to a place where we have free energy. We have healthcare solutions for everybody. We have schools that will serve everyone. Cannot be created by the old consciousness.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that quote from Einstein. All right, I got Bill here. Bill's got a question. Bill?
Well, we have some emails that came in.
Okay, all right. And Bill's my in-studio partner, Suzanne.
Sidekick, I guess, in the old way they call it.
He's a baby boomer. We were actually talking a lot of the stuff that we were talking about.
I'm too old to be a baby boomer. Thank you very much.
Well, I was giving you a compliment there.
Thank you.
I thought you were actually a baby boomer. I was giving you a compliment. I didn't even know it. But we were talking about this stuff last week, Suzanne. We were talking about the counterculture in the 60s and all that, and Bill has some great insight on that.
Well, we had a couple of questions, and the first one is, will, as time goes by, more children be born as indigo children?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, and there's really no reason to come in with old consciousness anymore. So pretty much all children that are coming in now are coming in with this new consciousness. Yes.
Are there levels of it? So some children may be born with a little bit of it, some born with a lot of it. Is that true, or is it all or nothing?
I don't know that it can be measured in that way. It's new consciousness.
Okay.
So the gifts and skill levels might vary and might be different, but what will be the same is, having this new understanding of creating the new paradigms out of cooperation and not competition.
Okay.
And this conceptual thinking. But as far as certain skill sets, those might vary.
So one child may have more telepathy than another, or more intuition than another? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, have you guys heard about these super psychics? And I think most of them are over in China. But Suzanne, I assume that you've heard about the super psychics, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Can you explain, just real quickly that phenomenon? Because some of these, it answers your question a little bit. Some of these children are being born with phenomenal capabilities. Yeah,
being able to see through the hands, having complete body awareness. so that you can see and hear through different parts of your body. But also, again, let me point out too that if you take an autistic child, they're the real savants. And there's a really great show that just started last year. It's called Touch, and it's on Fox Network. But it starts Kiefer Sutherland, and he's a single father of a 10-year-old autistic child. Have you seen this show?
I have not, no.
I don't know who did the research, but it is so spot on where, here's this autistic child, and every bit as if, you want to compare these children, the super psychics, every bit as expanded and talented in that and more. I mean, here's this kid who has no social skills. He can't speak, but he can see the geometric patterns on the universal consciousness grid. So what this kid does on the show called Touch is he's able to see the geometric patterns, see the math, and add the math in his head, and connect people and situations through the synchronicity of numbers. So he'll give his father a sequence of numbers, and as you follow through the whole hour, they all lead to the. It's really cool how he sees everything in these mathematical sequences, and these autistic children, are just amazing. And, talk about conceptual energy. That's an example of holding that extreme energy of a conceptual thinker, because that's all they can do. They don't have the linear constructs to think in a linear fashion. They're all conceptual.
So it's possible that an autistic child, even though we look at them as having, or, a lot of people look at them as having some sort of disability, really they're just so far advanced that we can't even comprehend it.
Exactly. And yet these super psychics are getting all the attention, when really, the most advanced ones are these autistic children. And with them, you have to go into their world. You can't force them to speak, to come out of, you've got to meet them where they are. And once you do, it's just beautiful.
How do you do that?
There's a little bit of training involved in that, because as a parent, it's kind of, when a child doesn't have a social skill like speaking, you kind of take that personally a little bit. I want my kid to speak. I want him to say, I love you, Mommy. And so it's kind of getting over that. And meeting them where they are, and really being able to, tap into their genius and see what they see.
Have you ever dealt with an autistic child in your work?
Yes.
And have you been able to make breakthroughs between, with them and their parents, and just how they communicate and get along in the world?
Yes, and they communicate telepathically, and so when you have a child that comes in autistic, that's the first thing you want to start practicing on your own is telepathy, which really isn't about reading somebody else's mind. It's about two people being able to hold the same thought simultaneously. So it's practice with that. And so you can send messages back and forth in a telepathic manner. And this is why a lot of children, too, who don't come in sort of full-blown autistic but are very slow to speak, is because they just have more memory of being able to use their minds to communicate and not their voice.
My goodness. Well, I'm gonna keep that in mind. I've come across several autistic children, not too personally in my recent past, and I'm definitely gonna keep you in mind, just in case I come across somebody who's at a complete loss and is maybe not engaging them as the most productive way, because if that's the case, isn't it kind of important that we embrace that and that we develop whatever sort of faculties we can, so that we can communicate with them, so that they can be enabled to do whatever it is that they were born to do?
Absolutely. And in that way, they're here to help us advance. And that's why if you meet them where they are, they can show you more about you and how much more you can be expanded versus trying to force them into our linear world. You know?
So what do you see happening, Suzanne, here in, let's say, the next decade, as now the multitudes of these indigos, you know, start coming of age and start really, you know, gaining their autonomy and kind of going out in the world, maybe even you know, in high school and then in college and all that? Do you see them being very active and taking a more active role in the world? And if so, how do you see that going? How do you see it influencing society, you know, politically, religiously, militarily?
Oh, most definitely. It's already happened. If you look at what happened in the Arab Spring last year, that was indigo consciousness. In the Occupy group, they had some of the concepts. You know, there was a lot of indigo consciousness there. I think the waters got a little muddied with too many different agendas. But if you look at the pure teaching of, like, Martin Luther King, which is, you know, and it goes back to the Hopi prophecy, you know, we are the ones we have been waiting for. It's like, you know, it's all well and good to protest and to, you know, bring awareness to what is off balance on our planet. But to truly change, we have to change. And Gandhi said the same thing. You know, if we don't want to be treated like second-class citizens, you know, he said to India, we have to stop treating each other like second-class citizens. So when you look at Martin Luther King in his purest teaching, you know, when he was in Montgomery, Alabama, and he, you know, approached the bus system and said, hey, you know, we don't want to be, you know, treated like secondhand citizens here. We don't want to sit in the back of the bus. So he went to the city council, you know, he went all the traditional routes and didn't get anywhere. Instead of being mad and protesting, and, you know, they said, well, if you're not going to treat us fairly, we're not going to cooperate with you anymore. And so the people stopped taking the bus. It was the people who chose to do something different. And it crippled the busing system, you know, because African Americans were they were the main ones who used the buses. And so the busing system changed as a result of that. But it was the people who had to do something different, the people who had to walk to wherever they were going to go, you know, whatever the weather was going to be, instead of taking the bus. So
yeah, it lasted a year, too. Maybe that's what it lasted an entire year, the Montgomery bus boycott. And maybe that's what this indigo consciousness is going to bring into the world. Maybe it's all about coming together, cooperating, as you were saying that, and doing it courageously, because that Montgomery bus boycott was not an easy thing to do. And you know, maybe these indigos are here to manifest that type of action in some even much far greater way. And you know, we're running out of time here, Suzanne, and I'm going to close it out here with a few words of my own and a song here in about a minute. But I want to make sure we get your website out there and your information, and I want you to just talk about what you do and just get any information out right now that you feel is most important to you.
Yeah, well, my website is quantumawakenings.net, N-E-T. And if you want more information on indigos, you can just click on the Indigo page. There's information. There's also a video presentation, replay of that I had from September. And also at the bottom of that page is a resource you can click that gives you a list of indigo attributes as well. And then on my webpage, I offer private sessions, quantum awakening sessions, full path sessions, and I also teach workshops and also Egyptian and numerology. So lots to look at there.
Man, so cool. Well, I really look forward to talking with you soon, and it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on the show. There's some great information on our website, and if any of this indigo stuff has hit anybody out there and you want to learn more, that video replay that she was talking about is really good stuff. It was the first thing that I looked at when I went to her website, and it drew me into many more of her videos there. Well, actually, there's 3, so I watched all 3 of them, and I watched them twice. But it's really good information, and information that is that good. I'm always thankful when I find it, because I sift through so much of it. And you know when you find good information. So thanks so much for being on the show, Suzanne. I'll talk to you real soon.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me, Michael.
Absolutely. All right, if this is your first time listening to the show, are hearing about this information, please resist the temptation to feel overwhelmed. There has been an influx of information in recent history, and the process of opening up to it can be daunting. Please know that you are listening only to that which you are meant to hear, and as your memory is activated, you will learn and know more and more. It is good and beneficial to seek knowledge from outside sources, but only to the extent that you do not become uncomfortable. I know because I am learning this truth the hard way. The knowledge with which we must equip ourselves during these amazing times must come from within. How we are to do that, I do not yet know. But I can assure you that I will keep you apprised of any good insights as I journey alongside you. I'm thankful for my car, for my new job, and for the courage I have received to persist, and persist even further through my fear of failure. Thank you so much for listening. I'm grateful. This is New Energy Radio on the Tan Talk Network. On behalf of Cedric Harris and Bill Toomey, I'm Michael Benjamin, signing off and reminding you all to be good, be happy, be conscious, and be well. And be good to the children. After all, they are our legacy.
Said it